How about a little of that? Yeah, I think that'll work. This is the camera angle's weird for this one, so I know what it looks like, but it's not. It's something different. Don't underestimate people. I got some folks tomorrow, some clients, and you know, I know better at this point, but I feel like that's probably true for most parts of my life. I also bent the shit out of this whip finisher trying. What the fuck was I trying to do? Dude, I had it like. I have no fucking clue. Anyways, yeah, so I had these, older guys, both older sounding, and also one of them, this dude was straight up like, yeah, like my fishing buddy. He said my fishing partner. Well, I'm not sure if I should say partner, because I work downtown, and when you say partner, it means something different. It's like, dude, I gotcha. But he said his buddy was elderly. I was like, all right. So I just talked with him, tied a bunch of little bugs. Not that I really need them, but thinking that we might be doing some nymphing. At a minimum, some dropper hopper. But yeah, it was pretty clear that he ended the call basically saying, kind of teasing that he wanted a mouse, and he was just kind of throwing that out there, and that he was looking forward to catching some Watauga River browns, and maybe on the off chance a rainbow. It's like, all right, I like how you're phrasing that. We had talked a bunch anyways. He's cool as shit. He said, yeah, we're ready for both highly adept in fishing dry flies, and we're ready to cast streamers. And if we end up going to it, nymphing. So it was like, as much as there's this mentality, and I am guilty of it occasionally, much less more so than what I see. But I am guilty of it, where I will refer to people as bobber clients, and I don't think, I mean, the most I've nymphed clients last August. There were dead shad floating around in eddies. No, it was not August. So that would be, yeah, like late October. There were dead shad floating around eddies on the South Holston in the top of the river. It's a brown trout stream, by the way. Bunch of dead shad and the eddies like spent mayflies. Like, we're fishing streamers. So we fished streamers for like 2 hours. Seasoned anglers, just not there. And we nymphed some. It's South Holston, and I'm not dragging little stuff through the upper end. So we caught some fish. It was boring as hell, and yeah, that was probably like 5 hours. But I will still like tie a bunch of nymphs, thinking that something in me wants. It feels like I want to. It's like, well, shit, I can do that too. You want to get torn up on nymphs? I did it for years. That's how I started trout fishing, not knowing that streamer fishing for trout was a thing because of the joker in the fly shop looking at my bass box. I was fly fishing for striper and largemouth and smallmouth, primarily largemouth, um, which sort of gave way to striper and smallmouth for a year before I was fishing for trout. And then fishing for trout, I was nervous, and a lot of what I do here and how I treat people and the opportunities that, or what I like to think as the opportunities that I afford to anglers instead of just handing them a bobber rig, is because I went into this shop and this dude looked at me and goes, "What are you fishing for with those?" And it was some woolly buggers, like very standard. I wasn't tying. And so, without having been immersed in fly fishing, I didn't have a local shop. I didn't know people. I was on my own. Like, I could probably count on one hand how many people I met. And I think that, he was, I think, very unknowingly in this position of influence and power to this effectively kid, mid 20s at that point, but kind of struggling and finding a new thing, and really becoming obsessed with it like a lot of people do. And at that point, pretty close to getting sober. Yeah, I was kind of quietly, not quietly in my own head, but quietly sort of a fucking mess. And so hearing that, I was fishing. I was fishing. That I started tying around that time too, mostly because I would lose nymphs. I would lose a fucking 18, 20, 22 in one cast. Set, no fish, ding, up in the tree. 250 a piece for the tungsten ones at the time, or 225. Some of them were three, and it was like, it's fucking $10 in the tree. And then I actually time myself retying 2 or 3 nymphs. I think I did it once. I got through 2, and it was like 12 minutes. I remember sitting in the woods at Beaver Creek in Maryland. That little shop's now owned by some sort of aggressive name. Used to be owned by this guy James, who was the fucking man. Yeah. So, anyways, out with that shit and in with the Shankopotomouse. Hippopotamouse. I had materials out, but whatever. So, a couple things on this one. Smooth transitions there. Rattle, shank. You don't need these, but boy are they helpful. Split ring pliers. And this it's not like a bastardization per se, but I just put a post up of some musky bucktails. And, those were over the last few years fishing with people who were more on the conventional side and talking with folks. And, this guy Michael, I think Mabry, Chubby Chasers in Kentucky. Just a great dude. My boy, Matt Podobinski. I'm sorry. He's slept at my house a lot. I could have just slipped that split ring on There, we'll do that. Yeah, so just like with the bucktails, it's from fishing with Matt and seeing the skunk bucktail, and I remember him looking at me and just being like, "That's actual skunk." And I was like, "That's fucking cool." Um, and he was like, "Yeah, that thing's caught. That thing's caught a lot of muskie." And just fishing with them, talking with them for at this point a long time. Guy's fishy, and so yeah, whatever. Do the fibers matter? No. But those things stick in my head. And so this Shankopotomouse, fuck am I looking for? Split rings. Shankopotomouse is sort of a Steve, you chuck? You chucking flies? Are you going to the mall later? Envision Flyworks, dude. He's just his mouse game, his fucking patterns are off the charts. Materials, all this stuff. But the stinger, and then it's these ideas combined with this stuff that I see, and I'm like, that's fucking cool. And I've exchanged some messages with him, and he's a fucking cool dude. And then you combine that with being on the water, and I feel like that's where you get these not necessarily aha moments, because who knows if this is right. I feel like I've gotten one of my best mousing fish was on just a really simple pattern. And what I'm doing here is putting a split ring on the back of this, and I was just going to slide it over that little opening in the back before I close it up. But if I'm not doing that, or when I put a hook on here, I don't really feel like tying this thing with a treble. These little split ring pliers, where you at? Huh? They get that snaggle tooth in there so that you can just put a hook on. You probably didn't need an in-depth demonstration. Yeah, this thing's a little easier to tie without stinger hook flopping around off the back. So Steve does this tubing around, and I'll use the rigid tubing that I had actually gotten originally when I had seen one of Gunner's videos years ago about the Build-A-Beast, I think it was. And these are shanks that aren't offset. So I've made them offset. And I guess, yeah, so the magic happened when I was fishing down the Tog. This is winter or early spring this year. And I'm going to end up using the bigger shank anyways. Or smaller rattle. Look at that. I got some of these. Are these smaller? Yeah. Medium size plastic rattles. It's just on Amazon. I'll put a link in the video description. I like to pop that little attachment point off. And then sometimes they crack. Sometimes they're cracked. And if you don't crack it there, I always like to just throw a little layer of bone dry. This isn't bone dry. It's actually fly tie resin. Solera's the medium viscosity is pretty legit. And then this is just a cap. Oh yeah, so why I don't have my tripod or the fucking little phone holder jobber? You know what I'm gonna do? I want a secure connection. I've tried to film this a couple times. If you can't tell, I've been using bigger shanks. These are the 15 millimeter, which they're much longer than the Flyman 15. And one of the things that I wanted in this fly was to have it sort of ride down low in the back. And yeah, I actually said, fuck it, I'm just going to do this video now because I've attempted to do it a bunch before and something's always getting in the way. But talking with Garth Vader Fly Company on Instagram, just a little bit ago, and him, we exchanged some pictures of our fingers. We both had a layer of super glue. I didn't realize I wasn't following him. I fucking hate social media. It's necessary, but I don't like being on it, and so I don't really follow a lot of people. It's not. I did stop following like every guide in this area because, yeah. For those not in a guiding, it's like if you took everyone in your office and all their fucking egos and bullshit, and then all the ones who like were legit, but hated the guys and guys that had egos, and so they're trashing on them about that. If you took all of that and then added the layer of social media to it, and then made it about fish and specifically about nymphing up rainbows, oh my gosh. So pretty quickly learned that that was not going to be for me. So sorry, Garth. Not following you is not intentional. But yeah, he was talking about this fly looked fucking sick, deer hair foam, little marsh mouse thing, and it rides low in the back, high in the front. I was like, yeah, I like those behaviors, and that's one of the main things that I wanted here. So, like with most of my flies, I'm doing it. It's a combination of a number of different things, and it's for something. I'm trying to solve a problem, whether or not that problem or the solution to that problem is the fish catching answer. The answer is clearly yes. And if you disagree, you're fucking wrong. Now it's fly tying, right? It's the creative side of like, okay, here's this thing I want. Why I want it? Because I'm on the lower tog, almost blind casting. I'd hit this spot, I don't know, a dozen or more times, and then I'm just holding the rod up. I got fucking, my shit is everywhere. You guys will get the point anyways, right? Just sort of wiggle that as I'm going. And so I get a couple, dozen or so casts out in this little spot. I know there's a big fish there. I've moved it a couple times on streamers, and just nothing. It's 2:00 in the morning. It's kind of cold. I'm like getting hungry. So I got my rod in my hand, like one arm under my armpit, and like holding the rod here, and then I'm opening a bag of jerky. And so the mouse is just fucking swinging. It's not moving at all. It's just in the current with a little bit slow and shallow. Little V. Of fucking course. And then boom, hits again. While I'm fucking I got But just thinking about that moment and just what were there other triggers to have that happen sooner? What was the trigger, etc. I think some of it is, where was the fish and getting its attention. Um, and so just having something a little louder and I don't know, presence in the water, and then on the eat, it's like, god damn, I will have nights of some of you watching this have been on them. Big ups to my dudes, Phil and Steve from the OH. We probably got like, I don't know, 60 or 70 each, maybe a piece. There's no way any of us, I know they weren't counting. I certainly, after 2 or 3, it was like, oh, fuck. I think we landed one fish, and some of them were on, and they're, you lose some of them, but so many of them are just these little splashy eats. And I had one of them running stingers, and we were fishing some of these actually, and some of them came in on the back hook, and then they shook them, and yeah, there's just not a whole lot you can do. But I do want something that's in the water a little bit. If they're coming from behind, I think they get a little like the splashy sort of knocky eats. So I want a wide gap in the front, a long distance between the 2 points, and then I want that back, whatever point or points if you're running a treble on it. I want that shit to be fucking wiggling around so that it's gonna, if there's any pressure on that hook point, it's gonna stick and follow them until you get tension. That's my thinking, at least. All right, so we got that. This is actually it's a pretty simple fly. I'm just been trying to do this one for a while, and so I have a bunch of thoughts. I've also been tying all fucking day. I say that like it wasn't an awesome day. But, you fucking know. Some TP 605. Kind of dig this. This is the Trout Predator Light. Thank you to Jack. For giving me some of these. So I'm gonna do a little bit like that. I'm sure you can gather what's happening, and I won't worry about that bend too much. I'll just tie it in real tight and bend it while it's on. You could also do, some hard mono if you're like some 80-pound fluoro or something, or even a couple pieces of wire and epoxy it off the back. I do like to have little to no fouling. So, distance along with the rigidity in the back. And then the metal here, this is why I went to a smaller shank, helps to keel it, which, as much as the problem solving can happen for the eat and the hook set and all that, when it's up like this and I'm pulling it, I want it to be up like this so that it's skating. Because a lot of times this leader running fluoro mono, the tip of your sink, all this stuff's not floating. So it ends up being like this. So when you're giving it twitches or whatever, it wants to do this, or that's where the tension is, because that's how it's floating. And then when you really pull it, it's kind of going like this, and so you get. And if you have stuff that's just all straight up and down, it's kind of meh. I have found, I'm not sure about this one, but I think that people talk about fishing drowned mice, but I personally think that's fucking stupid. And also for the glimmer of light every once in a while that you get when you're out there, if it's slow, I like seeing that wake. But I think that profile and something that's floating on the water, or at least has what is floating on the water, has blocks light like a small critter would, is important. So we got that, and this is Frankfur from Fly Tires Dungeon. It's fucking legit. It is craft fur on HGH and PCP and DMT. I mean, that is, that's 4.5 inches, and $2 for all that. So here, of course, do whatever you want. But I'm going for splat. So I want something that, which means I want like a smooth, relatively flat or even bottom. And you can dub and loop this. Shit, you could dub and loop this whole fly. So there's a little bit of a tail effect and some taper in this one too. Get that on there. Twice around, pretty easy, and then like tying in bucktail, you just sort of mash that thing around. I do want to get it on the bottom. And so again, weight distribution, airing, heavier, sinkier stuff below the hook eye. So when you press that around, trying to just handicap that, getting things down towards the bottom, and then sinkier stuff in the back. We'll do a little more craft fur, but big chunk right there. Foam is home. Where's my fucking magic button to have the thing that I was looking for magically appear? That's all right. This is some stuff that you use to make, I guess, swords. Oh, of course, here we go. That's a little wide bodied. I think this is 5mm, could be 6. On the package, there's a picture of like a medieval, like it's for role play or whatever. So here, a couple different ways to tie in foam. You can do one like this where you tie in the narrow side here, and that way you're not wrapping around the hole. You know, you fold it over like that. I am going to not do that. And mostly it's because I want to keep this foam uncompressed. It's super opaque. It'll help this thing hold, you know, that all that front section ride up top. And so another thing I want in my mice, that's 140 denier. I'll link the materials in the description. Switching to GSP, I think this is 150. I cut little pieces of 2mm foam and glue it to the holes so that it doesn't make that horrendous squeaking noise. Dub and loop. That's about right. About that much space before the eye. This is a fun part. Got my spinner attached to, I guess that would be female Velcro, with the male Velcro stuck to the side of the table. You can use, I'll use thinner foam. Heck. Let's party. So one of the other characteristics that I'm looking for is friction, dragginess. I want to feel it. I want to see it, you know, dragging on the water, creating a big wake, not just from the head. I wanted that to be independent of the push or whatever is going on up front. I want the body of it to be draggy. That's probably good. It doesn't have to be perfect, except for... I got a little dubbing wax on the inside of the vise right there. So, clip that thing in. Cut the attachment point. And once you're tight, you'll see them start to bend a little bit. But once you're tight, you can start going. With GSP and with foam, you can cut through them if you go too hard. I do want to make sure these guys are still attached. Get out of there. Yeah, so once it doesn't need to be all super corded up. And you can really massage this stuff and do some wraps around itself and all that. I want to get back in there. You know what I'm going to do? Super glue, GSP, foam, craft fur. Sounds of fall. The sounds of my air conditioner. That's part of the experience. So I've done some where I put craft fur in the dubbing loop with the foam. I've done a bunch of different iterations of this. This is already sort of getting towards the, is that really necessary? So just foam, and then basically what I'm doing here is taking away the bite guard. I want that hook gap. You can leave a little more if you're using like a Gamaris or a size 2 B10S. It's probably about the same hook gap, but anyways, it's pretty stiff material, so I don't want it closing that gap up. Then we're going to do a little reverse tie of craft fur, franc fur. And I know it hurts to watch me just snip this in half, but that's what happened. I don't know if anyone watches Trailer Park Boys, but the beginnings of the podcasts, that's inspiration for kind of how I want to open these videos. Julian goes, "What's up, fuckers?" That show provided some laughs when I was not feeling giggly. Mash all this back, kind of keep it on the bottom with that. Here's another little, if craft fur is being funny with you or it's not catching that GSP, water is both cohesive and adhesive. Put that in your pipe, in your fish whistle. Take a fucking bong rip. So if you are tying with thinner foam, dude, it's like $10 for that sheet. You are tying with thinner foam, you'll cut through on this part. So you can narrow it down, tie it in, and then tie in this kind of popper head. I trust UV resin less than I trust super glue, especially with all this stuff. And then I'm going to put some cinching wraps with that super glue with the 140 because it's a little harder to cut through foam with not GSP. So this 140 will snap before I get through that foam. And all kind of depends on what I'm feeling, I don't know, different fish lies I'm thinking about. But sometimes I'll, get that front kind of cupped, put a little resin on it. But I'm not going to. I have a bunch like that, so I'm just going to keep this one as it is. And then we'll put on don't let that super glue dry. You want to get that in your hands immediately and try to get a nice layer. If you can glue the underside of your finger into your nail and have that kind of be the way that your finger is for a day or two, that's one of the ideas here. We got a Gammy Octopus number 4, this thing. And then just for fun, because we're here and I like to party, fishing with one of my regular clients, and he ties. He's watched some of these videos. John, old Johnny boy, and he was like, we were talking about, I think the pounder of trout video. He was referring to something, some moment. Or I said something. He's like, yeah, you said it's because you like to party? I was like, yeah. And if you're worried about, I don't know, the hook breaking or whatever, I question what rod you're fishing. Unless you're fishing a 10 weight, you're not going to break this hook. I do kind of want to make it a little more jig-esque. Give it a little bit of a bend up. Dirty. You don't need split ring pliers for this one. Heck, you don't even need a split ring at all, but I also kind of want to have the option of throwing a treble on there. It's like Fortune Fire. It's my little water bowl. So this is where the split ring is just Can this thing see my eyes? Does it know? Is it listening to me? Focus. You're not going to be able to see any of this. Whatever. The split ring pliers hold the damn thing open. I'm doing not a great job of either operating or explaining it well. Come on. You. And since, there we go. The Shankopotomouse kind of rides like this. It's like an emerging mouse. Get out there before it's too cold, or go out when it's cold. Not, what is it? Not, there's no such thing as bad weather. Bad gear? That's not true. There is weather that I would not. Under 34 degrees and windy, I start to say, is there something else I'd rather be doing? Normally the answer is yes, but if I can't do that thing, then fishing it is. But I've had enough days of that fucking, sometimes it just isn't fun. Then at night, yeah. Anyways, go out and fish. Yeah, have fun. Be safe. Get fun.